Frog is an archetype of water aqua monsters that debuted in Cybernetic Revolution. This is both the first water archetype and the first aqua archetype. The archetype is used by Princess Rose in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. The Toad series is a related series of monsters that support the frog archetype. Froggy Force Field is not a frog card, because it does not have the specified kanji in its Japanese name. Slime Toad, previously known as Frog the Jam, is also not a frog card because of its Japanese name, and was renamed to clarify this. In Italian and Spanish, since November 2016, the archetype name is capitalized as Rana. This prevents the archetype name clashing with other archetype names in those languages, such as Ancient Gear, in Granigaio Antico in Italian. This is similar to how the LV and Hero archetypes are capitalized in all TCG languages. True to their name, the frog as well as the related toad monsters resemble their real-life counterparts. Some frog monsters like Flip-Flop Frog and Poison Draw Frog showcase their long, sticky tongues in their artwork. Most of the frog and toad monsters have distinctive colorful markings on their bodies and heads, most notably Swap Frog, Dupe Frog, BL's Frog, and Roninto-Aden. Some frog and toad monsters resemble angels like Amphibian Angel, Frog Hell and Treeborn Frog, while others resemble demons like BL's Frog and Swap Frog. This thematic resemblance to angels and demons is further highlighted by the contrasting half-angel, half-demon appearances of Substito-Ad and Trade-Toad. All members of the frog archetype, as well as members of the Toad series, which support the frog archetype, integrate puns into their Japanese names. While both Gaeru and Karu mean frog in Japanese, the latter is translated as toad in the TCG in order to distinguish the different words. T.A.D.P.O.L.E, a monster related to the frog archetype, also has a pun on its Japanese name. The puns in their names mostly rely on the fact that the interchangeable Japanese words Gaeru and Karu are homonymous with the plain form conjugation of some Japanese verbs. These puns were not retained in the TCG names, if not replaced by different ones, since they are mostly untranslatable. Though weak, frog cards can unleash devastating effects that include rapid summoning, the option to increase their ATK or protect themselves from destruction, and wiping out all cards the opponent controls. Many frog cards have low levels, which lets them benefit from cards like Gravity Bind, Pride of the Weak and Graceful Revival. One card that kept frogs versatile and powerful was Substito-Ad, but after Frog FTK won the 2010 World Championships, it was forbidden, so many frog decks lost their supreme speed. 1-for-1 allows easy summoning of Substito-Ad, so a normal summon/set is not spent to get Substito-Ad out. BL's Frog. This card gains 300 ATK for each TADPOLE. In your graveyard. BL's Frog has a low ATK while in the deck and graveyard, so you can use Salvage or Mother Grizzly with it as a target, regardless of how many TADPOLE are in your graveyard. Use level tuning when you have 3 BL's Frogs and Wetlands face up on the field. This will give all 3 frogs a temporary 1200 ATK boost until level tuning wears off, which can form an OTK if your opponent does not have a monster and you have all 3 T.A.D.P.O.L.E.S in the graveyard. If you don't mind powering up only one BL's Frog, equipping it with Demotion can provide a more permanent boost. Defrog. When this card is tribute summoned, you can special summon Defrog S from your hand or deck up to the number of TADPOLE S in your graveyard. 3 copies of this card can very easily be summoned without tributing at all. Just special summon Roninto-Aden from the graveyard by its effect, then activate Inferno Reckless Summon. While your opponent may get 2 extra monsters, a rank 5 XYZ like Tiras, Keeper of Genesis can be make, or use something like Decroaking to wipe out your opponent's field. Be wary of something like Starlight Road when doing this. Since when Defrog is tribute summoned, it summons an additional copy for each TADPOLE. In the graveyard, and only 2 copies of Tadpole are needed in the graveyard to get all 3 copies of Defrog onto the field. This card works very well for rushing the opponent, especially if Umiuruka is on the field. This also combos well with Hydrogen. This card makes for very easy summoning of rank 5 XYZ monsters. Double Cross Frog cannot be used as material for a fusion, synchro, XYZ, or link summon. If this card is normal or flip summoned, change this card to defense position. Once per turn, you can target one monster in your opponent's main monster zone, give control of this defense position card to your opponent in a monster zone adjacent to that target, then if there are exactly 2 Double Cross Frog in your opponent's main monster zones, take control of all monsters between them. Use this effect to gain control of your opponent's strongest monster and afterwards prevent your opponent from taking it back by using Double Cross Frog for a Kaiju monster. This card can severely harm Burning Abyss decks due to their self-destruction effects. Keep in mind that Dante, Pilgrim of the Burning Abyss, can neither be swapped to your side nor is destroyed when your opponent controls non-Burning Abyss monster. Use this card before your opponent can summon him. Dupe Frog can search this card and Mr. Boy can possibly recycle it. After you took your opponent's monster, take it back with mind control or brain control to prevent your opponent from taking back their monster and use it for a summon. Also, you can imprison the taken monster between 2 weaker monster, as your opponent will be forced to get rid of them before he can attempt to take their monster back from you. Dupe Frog. This card's name becomes Defrog while it is on the field. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters for attacks, except this one. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 frog monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except Dupe Frog. This card counts as Defrog so it can more easily allow the use of Decroaking and D.3.S. Frog. If you control more than 1 face-up Dupe Frog, your opponent will not be able to declare an attack, creating a lockdown on attacks. If you have 1 Dupe Frog on the field, use Slip Summon to get another during your opponent's turn, stopping attacks for that turn. If you equip Mist Body to Dupe Frog, you can create a good defense, since Dupe Frog can be placed in defense position and draw all attacks to it. If this card's effect is negated while it is on the field, it will still activate when sent to the graveyard. However, Dupe Frog will miss the timing if used as a cost, such as being used as a synchro material monster or if it is tribute. If you have another monster on the field, equip it with rare gold armor to stop all opponents' attacks. Normal summon Junk Synchron to special summon Dupe Frog from your graveyard. Then use Inferno Reckless Summon to special summon 2 more copies of Dupe Frogs to your field, since the effect of Dupe Frog that treats him as a Defrog is negated. You can then synchro summon using Junk Synchron and Dupe Frog, who lost its effect, for a 2500 ATK Junk Warrior, or 4900 ATK with Wetlands on the field, and your opponent cannot attack you because you have 2 copies of Dupe Frogs. You can set Dupe Frog and Broken Blocker, then after your opponent eventually destroys it by battle, you can activate Broken Blocker to summon 2 Dupe Frogs from your deck, since its name is Dupe Frog again. You can then add a frog monster from your deck to your hand, and your opponent cannot attack. Flip-Flop Frog. Once per turn, you can flip this card into face-down defense position. When this card is flipped face-up, you can return monsters your opponent controls to their owner's hand up to the number of face-up frog monsters you control, except Frog the Jam. This card is quite possibly the most devastating card for frog decks, as the frog's ability to swarm the field and its ability to reset itself each turn means you can clear the field of the opponent's monsters each turn for a full-out direct assault, especially when combined with Unifrog, which can take care of the opponent's spells and traps. Vengeful Bog Spirit works very well with this card, allowing it to reuse its effect without letting your opponent attack it while it's face down on the field. A player can use this card's ability to flip it face down and then flip summon it in the same turn. The flip summon would be the 1 position change per turn. This would save you from having this monster in defense position where wetlands would be unable to help keep it around, but this cannot be used after this monster attacks in a turn because you cannot manually change, the flip summon, the position of a monster that attacked. When Flip-Flop Frog is attacked while in face-down defense position, its effect would still be activated, because the card is still flipped face up. Use this card to abuse Lava Golem's effect every possible turn. Tribute away 2 of your opponent's monsters, then bounce it back to your hand by flipping this card face up, usually by flip summon, then use this card's own effect to flip itself face down. Poison Draw Frog. When this face-up card on the field is sent to the graveyard, unless it was attacked while face down and destroyed by battle, you can draw 1 card. Suicide this card while Spirit Barrier is face up on your side of the field so you don't lose life points. Use Defense Draw while this card is in attack position to draw 2 cards. This card will miss the timing for many cards. Its effect would not activate if it is Tribute for a Tribute Summon or a Synchro Material Monster for a Synchro Summon. Swap Frog, Dupe Frog and Treeborn Frog combined with some Monarchs could help the above strategy. You can also use Foolish Burial and Inferno Reckless Summon. This card can be equipped to Sea Lancer. Not only does it power up Sea Lancer but does not miss timing when it is sent to the graveyard and will draw you a card. Combo this card with Creature Swap to get your opponent's monster, then attack Poison Draw Frog and you can draw 1 card with his effect. Roninto Aden. Cannot be used as a Synchro Material. This card's name becomes to Frog while it is on the field. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 frog monster from your graveyard, special summon this card. Because this card is treated as a defrog while on the field, it can be supported by frog support cards. Decroaking can also be used when there are 3 of these on your field, which can be very easy to manage due to its effect. Special summon this card by its effect and use Inferno Reckless Summon. 3 defrog will be special summoned. This monster is an alternate tribute fodder for Treeborn Frog at Monarch decks, as long as there are some frog monsters sorted in at the deck. Submarine Frog. During battle between this attacking card and a defense position monster whose def is lower than the ATK of this card, inflict the difference as battle damage to your opponent. Substituto Add. You can tribute 1 monster to special summon 1 frog monster from your deck, except Frog the Jam. Frog monsters, except Frog the Jam, cannot be destroyed by battle. Use this card with Scapegoat to summon up to 5 frog monsters from your deck. Substituto Add can be tribute for its own effect. An alternative to the above strategy is using Grinder Golem as a reusable token generator. Special summon Grinder Golem in defense. If you have any Flip-Flop Frog on the field, activate its effect to flip face down, then flip summon it to return Grinder Golem back to your hand. Repeat as needed. Since summoning the 2 tokens is not optional, this will probably only be used once per turn unless you use Mass Driver or Cannon Soldier. If you have 3 tokens left and Slifer the Sky Dragon in your hand, use them to special summon 3 copies of Poison Draw Frog to use. The trio serves as a double-edged sword, because they will not only be tribute fodder, but their effects will cause Slifer to have at least 3000 ATK and def when you summon him, due to their effects. The 4 Scapegoat tokens can each be tributes to summon several copies of Treeborn Frog and Poison Draw Frog, which can be used to XYZ summon number 13, Embodiment of Crime, and number 31, Embodiment of Punishment. It would help if you had an unfortunate report set, because you can force the opponent into attacking twice, which may result in an OTK if your opponent is using a beat stick deck. Such a move can be pulled off in a frog/dragon deck. Use Dragon's Mirror to banish 5 dragon-type monsters from your graveyard and summon 5-headed dragon before giving it to your opponent with Mystic Box, assuming you don't control a monster other than Substituto Add, Crime, and Punishment. Attack it with Crime and Punishment for a whopping 9000 battle damage. Use this effect to summon Treeborn Frog, then, activate the effect again, so you will have Treeborn Frog in your graveyard to special summon it to summon more frog monsters. This card can very easily summon a frog. Create an OTK by constantly summoning frogs from the deck, in combination with 3 Witch Doctor of Sparta, Pot of Avarice and maybe Exodius the Ultimate Forbidden Lord. When using Substituto Ad, as long as you have a dupe frog on the field, your opponents will not be able to destroy either of them by battle, thanks to dupe frog's effect. If you leave dupe frog in defense position, with a card like Spirit Barrier to prevent piercing, then your opponents can't touch your life points through battle. Using this strategy, team it up with Unifragus to constantly attack your opponent without worry of them being attacked themselves. This is very useful when used with Shield and Sword or Inverse Universe. In Frog Monarchs variants, normal summon this card, tribute for its own effect, and then special summon a swap frog to dump a tree-born frog to the graveyard. Be careful when making some plays, as this card is not a frog. This means some cards such as Froggy Force Field will not work with Substituto Ad. Also, if you have this card and another dupe frog, there is still danger if your opponent has a piercing effect like Blackwing, Bora the Spear. Use this card to special summon 2 dupe frogs, tributing this card if necessary, for extra safety. Use this card with 1-for-1 to special summon Substituto Ad. Normal summon another monster to the field and use Substituto Ad's effect to search out dupe frog, then your opponent can't touch your life points. If you have another monster on your side of the field, you can also summon this card and tribute said other monster and this card to summon 2 dupe frog, to make your opponent unable to attack at all. Use Swap Frog to quickly put this card into the graveyard to be easily put into the hand using Salvage or revived using Call of the Haunted or Graceful Revival. Special summon this with Kinkabayo, then activate Substituto Ad's effect by tributing itself. Because Kinkabayo returns to the hand during your end phase, you can potentially do this once every turn. If you have Pot of Avarice, you can get an easy 2-card draw by repeatedly tributing the same monster until you have at least 5 monsters in the graveyard, then use Pot of Avarice to return them to the deck and draw 2 cards. If Substituto Ad is on the field and Fishborg Blaster is in your graveyard, you can discard cards from your hand to special summon Fishborg Blaster, and immediately substitute him for a frog monster from your deck. This sends him back into the graveyard, allowing you to repeat the process. You can use this to facilitate the use of decroaking, or perform a wetlands OTK by swarming the field. An easier way would be to send Ronanto Adden to the graveyard, e.g. with Swap Frog, also searchable with Substituto Ad, then banish any frog to summon Ronanto Adden. You can then tribute Ronanto Adden to summon any frog you don't need, then tribute that to summon what you do, e.g. Unifrog. Banish the frog you didn't need to summon Ronanto Adden and repeat to flood your field with Cyber Summon Blaster. This is a strategy that is able to inflict continuous damage to your opponent. Use Substituto Ad to tribute and special summon frogs constantly as DNA Surgery and 2 Cyber Summon Blaster are active, thereby inflicting 600 damage each time you use Substituto Ad's effect. An alternate version may be used with Soul Absorbing Bone Tower for an OTK or with Dark Strike Fighter for an FTK. Use Soul Exchange to tribute your opponent's monster instead of your own, then you get to run through the engine as soon as your first turn without having to tribute Substituto Ad for his own cost or do any extra special summoning. Swap Frog. You can special summon this card, from your hand, by discarding one other water monster. When this card is summoned, you can send one level 2 or lower Aqua type water monster from your deck or face up from your field to the graveyard. Once per turn, you can return one monster you control to the hand. You can normal summon one frog monster during your main phase this turn, except Swap Frog, in addition to your normal summon/set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Use this card's effect to send Treeborn Frog to the graveyard. Then next turn after Treeborn Frog is special summoned, use the effect of Swap Frog to return Treeborn and get a second normal summon. You can also send Ronanto Adden to the graveyard and use its effect later in the game. This card's effect is also ideal for sending Tadpole to the graveyard, to facilitate the summoning of multiple defrogs or to power up BL's frog. When you send a monster to your graveyard by the effect of Swap Frog, use Graceful Revival, Call of the Haunted or other cards related to summon that monster. After using Junk Synchron to return a level 2 or lower frog monster to the field, you can use Swap Frog to return it to your hand, then normal summon it for it to regain its effect. If you have a face-up Poison Draw Frog or Dupe Frog, you can send it to the graveyard using this card's effect when it is summoned in order to activate their effects. You can use Salvage to recover the monster used to special summon Swap Frog and the other monster you sent from the deck/field to the graveyard by the second effect of Swap Frog. You can use Swap Frog to return any monarch to your hand and use its effect again. You can combine this with Treeborn Frog and Dupe Frog to have one tribute each turn and prevent attacks from your opponent. When facing a Light and Darkness Dragon, this card can be repeatedly returned to the hand and special summoned to have its effect negated, thus weakening Light and Darkness Dragon. Discard Roninto Aden to summon this card, then send a frog to the grave with its effect, or vice versa. Then, banish the frog to special summon Roninto Aden and get 2 monsters on your side of the field without using your normal summon for the turn. You can always reuse the effect of Swap Frog to summon himself and bounce himself back as long as you can pay his cost to discard a water attribute monster. When combining this card with Ultimate Offering, by order of the Emperor and Solemn Wishes, you can draw infinite cards by summoning it, negating its effect and drawing a card, gain life points, returning it to the hand and then pay the cost to summon it again, negating its effect and so on. Tadpole. When this card you control is destroyed by battle and sent to your graveyard, you can add any Tadpole S from your deck to your hand. Treeborn Frog. Once per turn, during your standby phase, if this card is in your graveyard and you do not control Treeborn Frog, you can special summon this card. You must control no spell/trap cards to activate and to resolve this effect. Send this card directly from the deck to the graveyard with Swap Frog or Foolish Burial to prepare a counter for the next turn. This card works well with Spiritual Water Art, Aoi, the second effect of enemy controller, and single tribute monsters like the Monarchs. All of these allow for great potential at gaining card advantage. Sometimes it is best to discard Treeborn Frog instead of setting it, because there is a chance the opponent will use Nobleman of Cross South on it. This will banish Treeborn Frog, most likely making it useless for the remainder of the duel. This card can be brought out immediately after it's been drawn with Hand Destruction, even on your first turn. This card works well in the same deck as Gortz the Emissary of Darkness, Denko Sekka and Jinzo, if any traps aren't used. This card is ideal to use in a Monarch control deck. This card works well with Raging Area. This card can be used to weaken Light and Darkness Dragon. Continuously try to special summon it, and each time it fails, Light and Darkness Dragon loses 500 ATK. This card can be used as easy tribute for Infernal Dragon, since Infernal Dragon will destroy it and revive itself, and Treeborn will revive on your next turn. Used together with Roninto Aden to create a wave of special summons each turn. In certain situations, a Dupe Frog may protect those monsters and there will be a flexible advantage. This card can help you synchro summon low-level synchro monsters easily and still have your Treeborn Frog next turn. Provide a fodder for Yubel. When using this card's effect, there needs to be no spell or trap cards on your field. This normally limits the trap cards that a player would have in their deck, however consider using traps that have a maintenance cost such as Fairy Box or Mirror Wall. Just do not pay their cost and they are removed, so that this card can be special summoned. Unifrog. This card can attack your opponent directly. When this card successfully attacks directly, if you control a frog monster other than Frog the Jam or Unifrog, you can destroy one spell or trap your opponent controls. By special summon this card and using Inferno Reckless Summon you can deal 1200 battle damage, and with Wetlands you can deal 4800 battle damage to your opponent. Not only the above effects, but it can also wipe out your opponent's backfield. With Level Limit, Area B and Gravity Bind, any opposing monsters would be unable to attack and destroy your frogs. Inferno Reckless summon 2 or 3 star boys to increase your Unifrog's attack by 1500. With Wetlands and 3 star boys, you have a monster with 3100 attack, that can attack directly for a OTK. Combining this card with Ronanto Aden's special summon ability and Slash or Scapegoat, you can fill the field to 5 monsters, and attach a United We Stand to make him a 4400 ATK direct attacker. D.3.S. Frog. Defrog plus Defrog plus Defrog. A fusion summon of this card can only be conducted with the above fusion material monsters. This card gains 500 ATK for each Treeborn Frog in your graveyard. If it gets destroyed, you can revive it with Trade Toad. You can also revive it using Torrential Reborn if it is destroyed by battle or card effect. This has the bonus of reviving multiple other frog/water monsters if cards such as Black Rose Dragon, Mirror Force, Dark Hole or Torrential Tribute were used. Summon Defrog while you have 2 or more TADPOLE in the graveyard. Attack directly with the 3 Defrog first, and then use Super Polymerization to attack with D.3.S. Frog for a 1-turn kill. Decroaking will help this combo. Alternately, you can use Polymerization to fuse the Defrog into D.3.S. Frog, attack with D.3.S. Frog, and then use Diffusion. You can then attack directly with the 3 Defrog for game. You cannot use Decroaking if you perform the OTK in this way unless you control the 3 Defrog beforehand. You can special summon Ronanto Aden with its effect, then use Inferno Reckless Summon to get the fusion material for this card from your deck. If you have trouble getting 3 Defrog on the field but have them in your hand, fuse them together then defuse them and then use Decroaking. Use Foolish Burial to dump a Treeborn Frog, giving this card 3000 ATK at the least. If you control this card, and DNA Surgery or D. Tribe, summon Rescue Rabbit and use its effect to special summon 2 copies of Slime Toad before activating Dragonic Tactics to summon Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon and use them to XYZ summon number 107, Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, number 62, Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, or Thunder End Dragon. You can also use Dragonic Tactics to summon Dragon Core Hexer and special summon either Ultimaya Solkin or Phantasmal Lord Ultimatal Bishbakken. If you already have 4 Scapegoat tokens, activate Dragonic Tactics to summon a level 8 dragon from your deck. Afterwards, if your hand also contains Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, summon Rescue Rabbit and banish it to play 2 copies of Alexandrite Dragon, then tribute them to summon Galaxy Eyes. Finally, overlay all 3 of them to XYZ summon Neo Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. Toad Ally Awesome, 2 level 2 Aqua type monsters. Once per turn, during the standby phase, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card, special summon 1 frog monster from your deck. Once per turn, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell/trap card, or monster effect, you can send 1 Aqua-type monster from your hand or face-up from your field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card, then you can set it to your field. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 water monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. This card can be special summoned with Bahamut Shark. It can tribute itself as cost to negate an effect, which will trigger its last effect and retrieve itself or another water monster. Multiple copies of Ronanto Aden can easily summon this card. It can be sent from the deck to the graveyard with Swap Frog or Foolish Burial. This card can also be easily summoned in a Paleozoic deck. Note that any Aqua monster from your hand or field can be sent, to activate this card's second effect. Keep in mind that Paleozoic trap cards that were special summoned via their own effects, unless a card that prevents banishing such as Imperial Iron Wall is on the field, and Pendulum monsters in monster zones cannot be sent as a cost to activate this card's second effect. If there are no spell/trap cards on your field, Treeborn Frog can be used every turn to activate this card's second effect. Furthermore, Treeborn Frog can be special summoned with this card's first effect. This card's second effect can be combined with Ultimate Solkin, if a spell/trap card or effect is negated. In a True Draco deck, this card can be special summoned by the effect of Metaltron 12, the True Dracombatant, and its last effect can be used to retrieve True King Barastos, the Fathomer, or Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Fighter. Decroaking, activate only while you control 3 face-up frogs. Destroy all cards your opponent controls. Using the effect of Destiny Hero, Diamond Dude, you do not need to have 3 copies of Defrog on your side of the field to activate this card. You can use Future Fusion to fuse a D.3.S. Frog, then activate Diffusion to resummon the 3 copies of Defrog. Then, you can activate this card. Ronanto Aden can make this card easier to use. By banishing any 3 frog monsters in your graveyard, you may special summon 3 copies of Ronanto Aden from your graveyard to the field for this card's effect. Decroaking, unlike many other destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field cards, does not specify that the Defrog has to be a monster. Equip a Defrog to a Sea Lancer, and special summon 2 Ronanto Aden for the 3 Defrog requirement, then XYZ summon 4 Gachi Gantetsu for an open 2700 attack. Similarly, you could equip Sea Lancer with more than 1 Defrog. Ronanto Aden and Dupe Frog cannot be used in this manner because they would lose their effects. Froggy Force Field, activate only when a face-up frog monster you control, except Frog the Jam, is selected as an attack target. Destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. This card is very nice in combo with Poison Draw Frog. Due to its effect, it needs it to be face up, normal summon in attack position, set Froggy Force Field, destroy your opponent's monsters, then switch Poison Draw Frog to defense position. Deck types: Wetlands Beatdown. Frog decks benefit the most from the use the field spell Wetlands that increases the ATK of all level 2 or lower water/aqua monsters by 1200. The goal of a Wetlands Beatdown deck is usually to provide an early game beatdown and then lock down an increasingly defensive opponent through cards like Gravity Bind, a double dupe Frog Lock, or the effect of Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier. Dudark of the Ice Barrier works with Unifrog with their ability to attack directly. Flip-Flop Frog can be set up during a lockdown to clear the opponent's field and get an OTK. Terraforming and Metaverse can easily search for Wetlands. With Wetlands, on the field, the attribute boosters Starboy and Mistarboy can further power up Frog and Toad monsters to staggering values in a flash. The level 2 Aqua Water monster Performable Turn Toad can easily turn defensive Dupe Frog S, Ronanto Aden S, Substito at S and Trade Toad S into offensive Beat 6. Because this deck heavily revolves around Wetlands and can easily swarm the field with frog monsters, it can easily accommodate an Earthbound Immortal. Earthbound Immortal Shakuchal Hua works superbly because its effect lets it deal damage even with cards like Gravity Bind active. Earthbound Immortals that require tributes for their effects, such as Earthbound Immortal URU, also have great synergy with the frog's aforementioned swarming power. When incorporating synchros, Junk Synchron works very well as almost all frog monsters are level 2 or lower, but Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier is also an excellent tuner as Wetlands grants him 2500 ATK. Fishborg Blaster, traditional format only, and Deep Sea Diva are good tuners to include in a frog deck. They are easily special summoned and benefit from Aegis of the Ocean Dragon Lord, Water Hazard and other water support. Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier can be easily summoned using Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier and a Mother Grizzly or 2 of any level 2 monster. The Synchro monster Junk Warrior can boast a very high attack by gaining the attack of every level 2 monster on the field with its effect, which means Wetlands makes it incredibly strong if you have at least one frog monster on the field. Frog Monarch, this deck type uses the frog monsters as an engine for the monarch monsters. The idea of this deck is to use Treeborn Frog, Swap Frog and Ronanto Aden to generate tribute fodder. Another purpose of Swap Frog is to send Treeborn Frog or Ronanto Aden to the graveyard and to return monarchs to hand for later use. Swap Frog can also be used to abuse the effect of Raise of the Storm Monarch by returning it to the hand and reusing it to continually return a card controlled by the opponent to the top of their deck, preventing them from drawing new cards. Toad Ally Awesome Beatdown. Toad Ally Awesome is a very powerful toad monster that has an effect that can negate the activation of any spell/trap card or monster effect, then set that card on the activator's field. A well-structured usage of Ronanto Aden and Swap Frog can easily swarm the field and grave with level 2 monsters to either summon Toad Ally Awesome or be used as fodder for it. Additionally, Toad Ally Awesome can special summon frog monsters directly from the deck, further increasing the deck's consistency. Lancer Frogs. This deck uses the toad monster Ronanto Aden to summon itself by banishing frog monsters in the graveyard, while Sea Lancer takes advantage of those banished frog monsters by using them as equip cards. This method effectively recycles banished frog monsters, which can potentially be reused by Ronanto Aden. Toad Ally Awesome can be brought out frequently with this deck being able to summon level 2 aqua monsters very quickly. It is recommended to use both Dupe Frog and Poison Draw Frog because both get their effects when they are sent as Sea Lancer's equip card to the graveyard. Defrog OTK. Basically, the central strategy of this deck and win in a single turn by destroying all cards on the opponent's field by using Decroaking and subsequently delivering the finishing blow by attacking with all 3 Defrogs. As a central requirement for the use of Decroaking, there must be at least 3 Defrogs on the field, which can be accomplished easily either by tribute summoning Defrog and using its own effect, or through the use of Inferno Reckless Summon as a tech card. When tribute summoning Defrog to summon copies of itself, at least 2 T.A.D.P.O.L.E.S must be in the graveyard to make the most use out of its effect. Cards such as Tidal, Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls and Foolish Burial can help send T.A.D.P.O.L.E.S to the graveyard. TADPOLE from the deck. Swap Frog can use its effect to send up to 2 T.A.D.P.O.L.E.S from the deck to the graveyard and can allow an extra normal summon, allowing Defrog to hit the field faster. Another method to have 3 Defrogs on the field is through the use of Inferno Reckless Summon. Once Ronanto Aden is summoned from the graveyard, Inferno Reckless Summon can special summon up to 3 copies of Defrogs from the deck. Keep in mind that both Ronanto Aden and Dupe Frog have effects that treat them as Defrog while face up on the field, easing the requirement for the use of Decroaking. Once Decroaking accomplished its task to clear the opponent's field, it will be relatively easy to assault your opponent's life points. Cards such as Solidarity and United We Stand can help deal enough battle damage to the opponent with the 3 Defrogs and win the duel. Using the 3 Defrogs as fusion materials, D.3.S. Frog can be strategically fusion summoned and be diffusioned during the battle phase, creatively accomplishing the OTK. However, strategically XYZ summoning rank 5 monsters like Shark Fortress can compensate for a failed OTK. Frog Burn FTK, Classic. This deck abuses the effect of the toad monster Ronanto Aden to continuously summon itself from the graveyard as a fodder for the effect of Mass Driver, Cannon Soldier, or a card with the effect that tributes monsters to inflict direct damage to the opponent's life points. Catapult Turtle will not work because Ronanto Aden's attack is far too low. This first turn kill strategy involves the keycard Substituto Ad to fill the graveyard with enough frog monsters that will be used by Ronanto Aden to fuel its own effect. Once the necessary cards are set, this FTK is hard to stop, and relatively easy to accomplish. Once Substituto Ad is on the field, easy with 1-for-1 or Swap Frog plus Salvage, with another monster, the graveyard can be easily filled with as many frog monsters as possible. Swap Frog can easily send Ronanto Aden to the graveyard once summoned with the effect of Substituto Ad. By the time that the graveyard is ready, Mass Driver is used to tribute a Ronanto Aden to inflict direct damage to the opponent. Since Ronanto Aden can continuously revive itself, Mass Driver can repeat the process until the opponent's LP hits 0. a Cannon Soldier or its Toon counterpart Toon Cannon Soldier, searchable by Toon Table of Contents, can be used instead of a mass driver, but since it has to be summoned to the field first, double summon will be very useful. With the banning of Substitut in September 2010 and mass driver in March 2011, this classic strategy is no longer playable in the advanced format. Dragon Frog Exodia, Classic. The strategy of this classic deck is use the effect of the Toad monster Substitut to continuously send frog monsters from the field to the graveyard while the latter is affected with an effect that changes type such as DNA Surgery and D. Tribe, and finally use the effect of Super Rejuvenation to draw through the rest of the deck during the end phase and cause a win condition using the 5 parts of Exodia. Like most frog combos, the use of 1-for-1 is crucial to easily summon Substitut as fast as possible, and setting up the rest of the 3-card combo. Another card that could be used is a Cataville Omen to search for DNA Surgery, as well as Magical Mallet/Hand Destruction to allow controlled drawing of the other cards necessary for the combo without losing any parts of Exodia. Bear in mind that Poison Draw Frog or Dupe Frog miss timing when tribute as a cost for Substitut's effects, so their effects do not activate in the graveyard. Weaknesses: cards such as Zombie World will prevent the summoning of Toad Ally Awesome. Card effects that banish cards that would be sent to the graveyard, such as Masked Hero Dark Law and Dimensional Fissure, greatly hamper the strategies of frog decks. DD. Crow, Banisher of the Light and Dimensional Fissure are useful against strategies that involve the use of Substitut.